When I talk to clients about where they're going with intentional culture, there's usually a variety of different things that I ask them to think about. And one of the things I think that's hard for small to mid-sized businesses or executive leaders that really, I think the executive leader that's ready for this conversation or the senior leader that's ready for this for their, group of the organization, these are the folks that you are totally committed to your business strategy and you're totally committed to your people. Like you're at a place where you can balance both of those. I think different, these seasons of life for executives, it's harder to be able to balance and put energy towards those. So for instance, like a startup company obviously really cares about their people and they want to establish really great culture. And there's an opportunity to do some basic foundational pieces there, but not deep. Because most of the energy is towards the business strategy. And so what I find is while there might be great intention, sometimes it's really, really difficult to get all of the pieces underneath when you're in that phase. When you're, maybe a couple years in, or you're multiple years in, or you've assumed a role and you're a couple of years in, even if the company's been around for a long time, some of the things I think that you need to make sure that you're intentional about yourself. Are you at a place of balance? And for you, that might mean that you're 6 to 12 months in and you've understood what's going on in the culture and you know what's happening with your people and you're seeing how, if you could really lean into the people side of things, it would accelerate the business side of things. So being thoughtful about your own readiness, I think, is one of the most critical things for really thinking through intentional culture. And I've done a lot of different research, worked with a lot of different companies on what makes a strong company culture. And it's a variety of things. It is, are you clear on who you are as a team? If you're in a department within an organization, or if you have a larger and broader service line, maybe at the executive level, the people know what your mission and values are that ladder up to the company mission and values. Are you clear on what that actually looks like? How do you know that you're making progress on it? What does that look like? Because part of what's important about a company culture, especially for those in the workplace today, is that they're a part of something bigger than themselves. And if it's a lofty, really kind of right-brained picture, people will hook into that at first. But then the challenge is they don't know how they're contributing. And so they struggle with, this is so great. Is it working? Are we making progress? Am I doing the part that I'm supposed to be doing for that? And so sometimes people get off a bit there, really thinking about how you're creating a sense of community. And I was talking to somebody recently and they're starting a new company and they're starting to be really intentional about the community events and the team events that they're putting together. And she probably listed off, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 things that they were going after. And I said, oh, that sounds really exciting. How do you know which one's going to work? And she paused and she's like, but these are the things you should be doing. And I said, yeah, but think about the quantity of dollars and time and energy that you're spending. Is that the best? How do you know it's the best? Part of that's by talking to people and understanding what they need, and starting with, hey, we want to go here with culture. Where's this one step? So community is really important, but doing it right, doing it in a way that really matters. There's a lot of different aspects around community about how people feel a sense of belonging, how they connect to each other as more of that familial connection and not only task-related work. Also, what's really important is thinking through communication and recognition. Sometimes those can go hand in hand, but they're very different, obviously, in a variety of different ways. And so being thoughtful about, okay, how do I think through what I want to communicate, why I want to communicate it, what's the why behind what it is, like why does it matter, why is it important for people to listen to, and then making sure that that people understand. How do I know that? How do I follow up to say, hey, I shared that with you a couple of days ago, or you heard this in the big company meeting a couple of days ago. What questions do you have? Not do you have questions, but what questions do you have? Like leading to say, I expect you're going to have questions. That was a big change, or those were some things we were trying to communicate. A lot of the communication challenge, I think, in small to mid-sized businesses is everything's just moving so fast and there's so few people to be able to hold all of the different pieces and parts of what's going on in the organization. And so there are some ways that we can do some intentional planning around communication that ensures that the right audiences are getting the right message at the right time. Recognition through your communication is also critical, but I think one of the things that's really important about recognition is, how does it support your values? How does it support the mission that you actually put forward that said, we're going to go after this? We want to celebrate the things that are moving people along towards that goal, or they're embodying who you want the organization to really represent. So recognition with great intentionality for going above and beyond. One of the things that used to really be frustrating to me is I found that in the culture that I was in, there was a lot of recognition sort of in one-off. They weren't intending it to be this way. Oh, thank you so much for so-and-so who worked all weekend. Thank you so-and-so for working tirelessly for the last many weeks. Thank you so-and-so for, really juggling so many different things and, working late at night and, saw you sharing emails at midnight and like, thank you, thank you, thank you. What was interesting is because that was what was recognized, I found myself and my team feeling like, well, that must be the expectation. If that's what's recognized, those must be the things that we want our culture to be. And many of us really struggled with that level of expectation around that. So the communication around what you even talk about and what you celebrate really creates an interesting aspect on culture. And there's a variety of different other things that are really key and important for culture. But I think one of the things that's interesting is that you take time to really assess what you want culture to be. Culture is going to happen whether we want it to or not, just like the example that I just said of the individuals that were really promoting tireless work and 90-hour weeks and you haven't even eaten lunch in days, yay you, those things were really a part of what the messaging was. That was happening without being really intentional about how we want to speak, how we want to set our direction, like how do we foster a sense of connection, what do we recognize and what do we communicate. Those are pieces that you have to be intentional about if you want them to move towards the desired goal that you're after. And so I think one of the most critical things, once we realize that we're ready and we're in a place where we can actually spend some energy and focus on culture, is to understand specifically where we're going and why it's important. And then to understand, okay, well, if that's true, then where are we today? Let's look at a variety of things. Some of them I just mentioned, others that I didn't are, what are we doing for development? What do we do to care for our individuals? And then one of the most critical ones is what are the reinforcing structures? So do we talk about our values consistently? Do we have community building type things for our team members that are the right ones and that matter on a consistent basis, or do we only do it once a year? How do we communicate? How consistent is that? So reinforcing structures are ensuring that the way that our organizational chains of communication, or the way that we talk to our leaders about what's expected of them and then to our individuals from them, all of those different pieces are part of the reinforcing structure. So being honest with yourself about what that is and where you are today is some of the biggest steps forward. And then I think what's most critical from that point is really to recognize, okay, I can't do this all at once. It's too strong of a force, culture, and the different groups of individuals. And so I have to be intentional about which is the right step. Often I'll ask clients, what is the one that could give you the most bang for your buck, right? The biggest leverage. Sometimes it's a tiny, tiny thing, but it develops a sense of understanding or community because we communicated this thing over here. So trying to figure out where you can really catch two fish with one net, that type of mentality, at least as you get started, is key.